When you think of the most influential social media stars in Haven City, who do you think of? That's right, GammaTube star Vinryusai Ali of Ali's World. And do you think she became this way by keeping her proactive edginess to herself? No. She developed her persona by engaging the people, and that's why I encourage you all and anyone with the voice to exercise to dive in and sink into the ocean that is Anchor and start a podcast of your own to share your vision. Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Press the record button, bada bing, bada boom, kapish. Anchor gives you everything you need in one place for free, which you can use right from your phone, computer, or teleslab, protected by the eldritch energies of Gruel Save. Yeah, creation tools allow you to record and edit your podcast so it sounds great enough for you and I to have a back and forth conversation without the worry of sound quality. Anchor will even distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard everywhere from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and then some. It's why you're able to hear our P&D episodes from any service on the go. You can easily make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership, provided you have some dedicated listeners willing to flick a buck to support. Either way, this is a great tool for those of you who want to share your thoughts on what's happening in our show outside of the scope of just sending us voice messages. And, I would love to feature your podcast content. So download the Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. All right? Capish? Serian brought along Octavian and Grillion Point. Brought them along into looking into a mysterious figure by the name of Mr. Midnight. And this is their story. This is their report. I love these. So, Serian says, I'm curious. Octavian says, you want to find a guy? Hey, cool. Finding things is my middle name. I mean, not really. It's Merrick, but I enjoy finding things and I'm good at it, so I can get this done. Octavian Roth. And Grillion's thoughts before the job. I feel bad for him. I want to help him. And he's referring to Mr. Midnight. And, Grillion, that's how Grillion is. If you've seen Grillion's profile, he just wants to help people, and he wants to help people learn their abilities. So, we asked Serian and his group about their adventure, and this is what they had to say. I love these. Because I'm reading this for the first time, and I know this shit's long. All right, here we go. So Serian and his group, Serian, Octavian, and Grillion, they say, uneasy, Serian strides down the street. He never felt comfortable in the dark, and tonight was no exception. Was it night? He could never tell in the Shade District. Oh, they're in the Shade District. Hold up. Before we go any further, I just want to let y'all know that the Shade District is literally one of the first districts ever, because the Shade District, before I brought Gamma Haven onto YouTube, I was doing it with a smaller group, and Anarchy 12 Anarchy 12 had a character, and that character was from this place called the Shade District. So when it was time to start opening up districts, he had submitted that. Anyway, let's get back to the story. Around him, the air stands still, echoing the smallest patter of carrier rodents scurrying to deliver messages. All right, so he's pulling from the lore. He's pulling from the lore. Carrier rodents was one of the honorable mentions when we did the Flames of Creation for communications. The one that Teleslabs ended up getting picked by the people. Carrier rodents was one of the runner-ups, and it became canon because it was an honorable mention. And the carrier rodents was created by Pope Turner. Genetically modified rodents scurrying through the Undercity, completely indiscernible from normal vermin to the naked eye. Their customized genetic code hides any information that needs to be transferred. Carrier Rodents by Polk Turner. So when that became canon, now you got to kind of think about these little creatures running around that could be carrying all kinds of information. That's wild. So nice. He's pulling from the lore, man. It's always great. So let's rewind. He could never tell in the Shade District. Around him, the air stands still, echoing the smallest patter of carrier rodents scurrying to deliver messages. Serian could feel the dangers hiding in even the darker shadows of the alleys. He didn't feel welcomed among the passerby, each of them looking for drugs or weapons. After all, he was only here to find someone. He didn't think Octavian or Grillion were there yet. He was a half an hour early, but still he made his way into Razuliver's place and waited, rejecting any attempt the server made to get him to purchase a meal. Grillion sees him alone with no food and walks up and buys 2 meals. You said you might find someone with the special mutation. Serian nods. I've heard of this man who has caused chaos here. Stories of terror, the felt, and the figure. One made of bones, he says. Is he a mutant? He might be. I mean, I've heard that his form shows up when there's a new moon. But there's no light during a new moon, Grillion says, smiling. Isn't that peculiar? Ooh. Looking around, Serian anxiously taps his foot. He had only heard of Mr. Midnight a couple of weeks ago when he visited the Red Saint District. There had been patients admitted to some of the facilities there, claiming hysteria from seeing such a frightening creature. Naturally curious, Serian looks into him more and found that most people saw Mr. Midnight during the new moon. A definite pattern. Ooh. Octavian picks out the 2 a little too easily, he feels. They stand out in the area, not exactly at home in the Shade District, it seems. It's obvious he feels a little too comfortable. Moving towards them, he puts a hand on Serian's shoulder and gives a grin. Howdy, gents. He greets a momentary pull at the corner of his mouth, making his smile seem to widen. Now that he's close, there's a level of calm that extends to the other 2, suppressing the majority of the worry that may have been clinging to them only moments before. Oh, so Octavian, right? Octavian, his ability is he has like a field of emotional suppression. He can manipulate emotions around him, intensifying them, suppressing them, so they become more calm. And in this area that they're standing out in, because they obviously are probably dressed differently or just carry a different aura about them. People can tell, that they're not from there. And here comes Octavian, and they start to kind of relax. I wonder if they know that, that's what he does. We'll find out. Good. We're all here. So, what's the plan? Grillion asks, his voice a little less on edge. He wants to find Mr. Midnight, the curious figure who spent his nights in the Shade District. If he really was a mutant, Grillion wanted to help. He could stop this man from terrorizing the people. Yeah, my dudes, what's the deal? Octavian says, looking at Serian. Well, would you guys believe me if I said I just wanted to wander around? Nah, Octavian says, a smile crossing his face, an easy shrug lifting a shoulder. Chuckling. I guess that wouldn't be a good start, Serian says. Then stops for a second. However, it's the best I got. Doc, how are we supposed to find this mutant if, we don't really know how to find him? Grillion asks. He makes most of his appearances during a new moon, so I thought that it wouldn't be too hard to find him, Serian says. Grillion sighs, clearly annoyed at such a hollow plan. Octavian raises an eyebrow a bit, though keeps most disbelief from his expression. He hadn't really expected Serian to be so unprepared, but apparently that's the flavor of the evening. Did y'all co-write this, or is this all Serian writing this? Because it seems like it's like the same flow. Like it's really this is good. Seems like the same person. I mean, together we will be able to find him. We can work as a team. Man, this is good. They don't even have a plan on how they're going to find him, but that's hot. That's hot. Grillion leans forward, brow scrunched. He places his hands on the table and looks into Serian's eyes. We must, Serian. I need to help him if his mutation causes so much chaos. That's the goal, Serian replies without an affirmative. Octavian leans back in his chair, a little more comfortable in his position than the other two. I can always dig around, ask a few contacts, see what the people around know. With a nod of agreement, Serian looks for the waiter, calling him over. Could we just cancel the order? None of us... What? He pauses, looking to Octavian. Unless, you would like anything. Coffee. Lots of it. To go. Though, thanks, bud. Octavian says, grinning at the waiter, excitement brimming in his eyes. Good, so how much do I owe you? Serian asks, turning to the server. Your cost today is 3 bisquirks, sir, the waiter says. Serian hands off the money into the man's gloved hands, noticing for the first time his hat concealing his face. Without hesitation, have you heard of a man who has been popping up around the district? Serian asks the server. Both Grillion and Octavian looked at each other, then back to Serian. Octavian's gaze flicks up to the waiter for a moment, and he's shifting to sit a little straighter. Pardon? We've heard of a man who matches your description, causing terror around Shade. Do you know anything about that? The server's gaze shifts between the 3 men in front of him. There is a pause, almost one of confusion, and his eyes widen. There's not quite a fear there, likely due to Octavian's presence, but it is clear he is surprised. Ooh, that's deep. You're not... How are you unperturbed by... He mutters, seemingly working it out to himself before he turns and bolts. Odd fella, Octavian says, but he's already pushing away from the table. Time to follow? Definitely, Grillion adds. Serian nods. It's time to go. He stands and begins to follow after the man with white gloves, a calling card of Mr. Midnight. Hold up. Okay. So obviously, let's stop. Maybe we need to go back to who Mr. Midnight is, because is there some kind of illusion that's supposed to be happening and Mr. Midnight was like surprised that it wasn't working? That's what it seemed like, right? Mr. Midnight, submitted by Jacob Bashan. Mr. Midnight is an urban legend from the Shade District. He is said to have a black hat, white gloves, and the dressed and way of speak of a Victorian gentleman. Oh shit, I missed that opportunity. Maybe that's a good thing. He's often described as unsettling to be around. Not that he is a bad person. In fact, he is often described as helpful and kind. The feeling of unease people get around him is often described as instinctual, as if he shouldn't be. The reason for this feeling is a very valid one. When exposed to the light of a new moon, he is revealed to be a walking corpse. This, however, has not stopped him from protecting those in need of his help with his sword, pistol, and an aura of fear he can unleash on those who he is fighting. Why he is back from death in this form is unknown, though some rumors say it is not so much back from death as not allowed to die. Some of the stories about him say he was cursed for a life of misdeeds and was never allowed to die, though this has not stopped his body from decaying. Thus, why he goes around playing the part of a gentlemanly hero so as to redeem himself of his sinful life. Oh, listen, man, like, that's not my first time reading that, but it just, I kind of forgot. Man, that reminds me of, has anybody ever heard that song by Lupe Fiasco, The Cool? The Cool. Man, go listen to that shit. This reminds me of the person that this song is about, The Cool. It's about this drug dealer who, when he was killed, he came back to life. And he didn't know he was dead, but like he was wondering why people were like looking at him differently, and he was dead. But man, you got to hear that song. But anyway, Mr. Midnight. So, all right, let's get back to the story. So, why was he surprised? Let's get back to it. Obviously, he was surprised that Serian could, could see him. I mean, unless that person with the gloves was surprised that they knew that he had white gloves. I don't know. Let's get back. Heading out the front door, Serian nearly knocks a few people on the street over in his attempt. It only takes a moment before he spots the man he's chasing, spilling out of an alley onto the street and dashing. Serian only pauses for a brief second to look over his shoulder, searching for Octavian and Grillion. He doesn't see them, and he doesn't have time to wait for them. Inside the shop, however, Octavian had taken the opposite course of action. While Serian had headed for the front and the nearest exit, Octavian had nearly vaulted over their table and went towards the back. Pushing through the kitchen was easy enough. Barely anyone seemed fazed by his presence, and that's a cool power, man. And it was a small gift in the moment. He was more upset about the fact that he wasn't getting coffee first. I'm giving chase now. He bolted around the corner into Tilleran Street. Serian says into his comms, "We should try to block him in the alley off of Waymore." Octavian, Grillion, we should try to block him in the alley off of Waymore. Octavian, Grillion, you should be able to make your way there and help us restrain him. Octavian's voice chimes back to Serian over the comms in agreement, though slightly breathless. Despite the fact that they had all come here looking for this man, it seems rather apparent that they hadn't been planning on a chase so quickly. Stay on his tail, Octavian adds, and there is some muttered expletive that Serian can't quite make out. Nearly there. Grillion? Yes, I'm on my way. Watch for the signs of the mutation, Grillion says. Of course, Serian says as he rounds a corner, barely able to keep track of the man. Man, this is a fucking chase. Following a black hat he saw duck under an archway, Serian finds himself in a market filled with people bent over whispering, hushing their conversations as he walks by. The black market never slept. Oh, he's in the black market. The black market never slept, he guesses. He pushes his way past the booths covered in old sheets that give some semblance to privacy. Shaking his head, Serian pushes onward through people crowding his way, hurrying to keep up with the man he had assumed to be Mr. Midnight. Oh, watch it not be Mr. Midnight. It's Mr. fucking Dawn or some Mr. 1203. Serian watches as he leaves the market into a side alley, one that leads to where Serian wants him to go. Only a block or two away, Octavian is mirroring Serian's pursuit, though he doesn't have a figure to follow. Rather, he has a location to get to, and he fully intends to make it there before Mr. Midnight slips past them both. The back alleys and narrow streets of the Shade District would hold most people up, but Octavian has practically grown up in the area. It's similar to Blood Cobble. Oh, is it? And the black market dealings in the area have been on his radar for some time. He skirts past a couple individuals that have nearly blocked the path, shoving them when they don't seem bothered enough to move. A drawback of his mutation. He's just fucking like, he's got everybody doped up when he's near him. Even if he's in a hurry, no one else manages to find the same level of urgency that he does. You know, I didn't know it was that potent. Is that something that's just always on, or can he turn it off? It kind of makes sense. Remember when, you know, in the main, in Act 1, he was talking with Jacob, and Jacob was like, come on, dudes. He didn't say that, but he's like, man, look, let's celebrate, man. Y'all, you're thinking too much. We just got a W. Come on, let's celebrate. He's fucking suppressed. And Jacob's usually pretty extreme. Anyway, a drawback of his mutation, even if he's in a hurry, no one else manages to find the same level of urgency that he does. He left a market into a side alleyway by a fight club by the looks of it, Serian said. That's Limbus, Octavian replies quickly over comms, stopping his run and readjusting his course to intercept. I know it. I'm closing in. Don't lose him. This is intense. Serian follows down the alley. Pow. Adam. Who's Adam? Serian says into his armband. Could you track him for me through the surrounding security cameras? I don't want to lose him. Got it, Doc. His AI responds. What? He has AI? What? Hold on. Let's go take a look at Serian. Let's go take a look at Serian. Is he has an AI that I'm gonna? That was cool. Adam. I'm like, who's Adam? Security cameras and all that shit. Let's see. Let's go to Serian just to refresh my memory. I mean, I've looked at all your characters, and you're going to get to do more of these things in the episodes. We're all really just getting to know your characters, man. Act 1 is just the beginning of it. It's just the beginning. Let's see. Professor Serian Arclight. His first ability is Cyber Engineer, computer science skill, able to hack systems effectively. Okay. And then, okay, that's got to be it. Able to hack systems effectively, design perfect software, including AI and nanotech, and work with physical computer environments due to his interest in helping people. A lot of his knowledge has been used in the medical field and application there. Man, this character is deep, man. I like this character. He's like he's a leader, man. He's really capable of being a leader. His racial keyword, reliable. He's Nebby too. He's a Nebby man from Nebu. I wonder if he grew up in Haven or if he, let's see. Where's he from? As he grew up to his current 22 years, he also saw the dark side that most people lived in. Haven was no happy place with the suffering that people went through. He decided he would grow up to do something about it. Nothing made him happier than finding a place at Gate where he could change Haven for the better, bringing light to the darkest of souls. It doesn't say if he grew up in Haven or Nebu. But he has a new AI called Adam. I think we should add that right now, because that's cool. We're adding that to the lore right now. And what I'm gonna do is I'm going to give you a special code, Serian. And with that special code, you can get into this lore and fully flesh out what Adam does, and we can get that into the website. So you're going to have access to the actual article for this lore article that you can create, and it's going to be for Adam, your AI. So really, really, be prepared. I don't know why that song came to my mind. To flesh this thing out. Adam. I'm putting it in all caps. And then right now and you'll be able to flesh this out later, but this is what I'm going to put for now is Professor Serian's AI. Bow. That is so cool, man. Give me 1 second. Technology is the category. All right. Got it, Doc. Or got it, Doc. His AI response. That's old AI if it sounds like that. That's old school AI. I guess whatever year this is in, really future and far in the future, I guess this sounds like Cortana or some shit. Grillion looks down at his virtual map, taking another turn. Okay, just around the corner, he mutters. He wants to learn what made this Mr. Midnight create. What? Oh, whoa. He wants to learn what made this Mr. Midnight, in quotations, create fear. Did he even want to terrify people, or was he stuck with it? Could he even help the man who ran around at night like a madman, let alone talk to him? Grillion really wants to help this man. Yeah, that is a good question. This might be a person who just cannot control. He cannot control the power. It's a good angle. Didn't even think of that. Damn, Grillion. All right. Could he even help the man who ran around at night like a madman, let alone talk to him? Octavian turns off of Waymore Street, finding it empty. He then positions himself between the two connecting alleyways. I'm ready, he says into the comms. We're almost there, Serian says, panting. Afraid that Mr. Midnight wouldn't take the correct turn, Serian activates his nanites stored in his ring. They quickly take the form of a bow in his hand. Reaching out, he seems to grab an arrow from nowhere, formed from the nanites. Oh shit. Serian pauses, taking a breath. He pulls back, aims in front of and to the side of Mr. Midnight. Then he releases the arrow. It ricochets off of the ground, but as expected, Midnight dodges to the right into the alley. Serian grins, then sprints to catch up. What? Hold up. All right, back to Serian. So he has nanites, okay. Somehow, and his second ability is Chrysostonomics. Somehow, since a small child, he could somehow use his words to inspire, command, and manipulate people as he has grown. This mutation has grown more potent okay, so that's his ability to influence. Then his third ability is a martial arts skill. Due to his parents and later his own decisions, he has developed an expert knowledge in a variety of martial arts that he has pieced together to create his own variant, unique to him, called Riku, a fighting style without rival. A fighting without rival. Also, he has become well versed in the sword and bow. So, I guess this fighting style makes use of the sword and bow. I don't know this. I would assume that they are making use of the sword and bow, which is why it's one ability, one skill. But that's where the bow comes in. All right. Serian pauses, taking a breath. He pulls back, aims in front of and to the side of Mr. Midnight, then releases the arrow. It ricochets off of the ground, but as expected, Midnight dodges to the right into the alley. Serian grins, then sprints to catch up. Octavian watches as Mr. Midnight comes running around the corner. Once he's within range, Octavian jumps up, sticking out his arm. Mr. Midnight forcefully crashes into the arm, falling to the ground. That's a polite way of saying he just got clotheslined. Sprawled out on the ground, Mr. Midnight quickly shuffles with his coat before pulling out a pistol and pointing it at Octavian. Oh shit. It's got real. I don't have those kind of mutations, but I will shoot you. I would rather be gracious and avoid shooting you, Mr. Midnight says. Oh, I got to do my Victorian voice, right? I don't really even know what that I don't know how to go there. Victorian. So that's like hammer, right? Hammer. No. I'll get back to you with the Victorian. At the moment, Grillion comes around the adjacent alley. He takes stock of the situation and whistles. Mr. Midnight then drops the gun to put his hands on his ears. Hold up, what? At that moment, Grillion comes around the adjacent alley. He takes stock of the situation and whistles. Mr. Midnight then drops the gun. Oh, because Grillion's a siren. Grillion is a fucking siren. Yes, I forgot about that. Remember, Grillion was chanting with the refugees and they were rallying with Rezanok because he was also like bolstering that shit. He whistles. I'm about to say, what are you, like the G-type whisperer? Yeah, he's a siren. He whistles. Mr. Midnight drops the gun to put his hands on his ears. Oh, okay, he's covering his ears. It wasn't like a command. Okay. I thought he whistled and that shit just made him like drop it, you know? But that makes more sense. Like, he can't mind control people, but I guess it was so loud that shit was like a dagger to his ears. Oh, that's dangerous. His face scrunched in pain and a silent scream escaping his mouth. Octavian scoops down and picks up the gun, pointing it at Mr. Midnight. And that gun is the least of his worries with this Grillion's siren mouth at work. Whoa. However, once Grillion stops, Midnight kicks out, knocking the gun from Octavian's hand. Oh man. Midnight hops up and runs back the way he came. While Octavian reaches down to collect the fallen gun. He's like, nah, I'm about to shoot him. Serian comes around the corner to find Mr. Midnight running straight at him. Thinking fast, Serian positions himself for a fight. Come on, let's do this, he thinks, with his bow, because the bow has to be part of his Riku ability if it's going to be considered one skill. Serian positions himself for a fight. Come on, let's do this, he thinks, with his bow. As Midnight approaches him, Serian expertly grabs his leg and flips him over with the bow onto his back among the people that had begun to gather watching the chase. Oh, they're scrapping. Now, out in the street, the three of them stand around Mr. Midnight, who lies on the ground, his hands raised with his pistol, held in Octavian's hand, pointed at his chest. Now, out in the street, the three of them stand around Midnight, who lies on the ground, his hands raised with his pistol, held in Octavian's hand, pointed at his chest. I believe we should discuss this little ordeal, shall we? Midnight says. First, are you Mr. Midnight? Grillion asks, stepping forward. That is the title that many of the people have given me. Quite approximately, may I add, after my actions, which have been the injury of many people, Octavian asks. Injury? I never hurt a soul. I just have this effect on people to create panic inside them, which you should be feeling as well. Why not? I'm kind of able to calm people, Octavian says. Ah. That is indeed interesting, Midnight says, but I feel you are mistaken. I travel around the district every night looking for people who find themselves in unfortunate situations. I do love to help them. But you terrify them, Serian exclaims. Yes, that is indeed unfortunate. However, I have a duty to uphold. No matter my obstacles, I want to help people. He does seem to act nice, Grillion says. He goes around helping people, he just scares people on nights like tonight, when the moon changes him. When the moon changes him, did we ever hear of him harming anyone? Both Serian and Octavian shake their heads. See, my only purpose is to assist others. It is the lot I have been stuck with, Midnight says, looking up at the group. A skeletal face looking back in the faint light of the new moon. I am a good man. Plot twist. Something good or bad happened. So at this moment, they had an option of making something good happen or something bad happen. And it doesn't matter which one you pick. It's just giving you a way to put a twist on the story. And they said, it gets even better. So there is a twist and it gets even better. So what were Serian's thoughts about this plot twist? You've been helping people this whole time with that face? Octavian says, wait, what the You're not killing people and eating children? What the Seriously, like, what the And then Grillion says, I really need to help him now. Needing a minute to set his mind straight, Serian steps away while Octavian and Grillion talk with Midnight. Is spreading fear your mutation then? Grillion asks. What a curious question. Perhaps I do not know, Mr. Midnight says, smiling politely. I could help you, heal you from your mutation. Heal me? Am I not rumored to be cursed? I doubt you could do anything to heal such a thing as that. Please, Grillion says, I can help. Bud. Oh, he called him Bud. Bud. I don't think, this is Octavian. Bud, I don't think this guy wants anything from us. A wonderfully astute observation, Midnight says. I like Midnight. He says, he stands looking at the pistol Octavian has hanging at his side. Could I possibly have my sidearm returned to me? Thank you, he says, as Octavian hands the pistol over. Oh, I get it. Still wanting to know more? Are you some kind of wizard? Octavian asks. I am afraid I do not know, Midnight says, or perhaps I do not wish to share, looking to Octavian. Serian stands at the corner of the intersecting streets, looking back at the group standing around the head of the alley, the people wisely avoiding the group with a gun. What was with his face? Could he really be doing good? Serian truly never heard of anyone getting harmed, just reports of people feeling uneasy, then a terrible fit of fear, followed by seeing a man who wore bones. Still, he didn't hear anything about people being helped either. There was a possibility that no one wanted to share such a bizarre experience, but he still expected at least some sort of story to spread. Man. He took a deep breath in, looking down the street, just in time to see police rushing towards them, hurriedly pushing the few people walking out of their way. Oh no. Serian sprints down the street, shouting that the police are coming. Grillion turns, thinking this has been a fantastic night. Without much more urging, Grillion takes off the same way Serian is running, Midnight and Octavian following. However, before they even reach the corner, a group of police officers come running around, freezing everyone in their tracks. Why? Serian manages to catch up and looks back to the other officers coming their way. Let me talk to them. I can get them to listen, Serian says. I can keep them calm, Octavian adds. I fear my presence could be problematic, Midnight says. He ducks his head to block the skeletal features from potentially causing any issues. Don't worry, we can all get safely out of here, Octavian says. He would help. This time, he could do it, he thought. The cops rushed around them, closing a circle around the group of four, each weapon trained at them. A man steps forward, decorated in a variety of insignias and badges clipped to his uniform. the captain. He takes his cap off and looks at the group hunching together, waiting for him to say something. "Y'all need to come with me," he growls. "For what?" Grillion asks. "A whole bunch of witnesses just spotted you lot," he says while pointing to each of them, smiling, disrupting the peace. "That was just us having fun," Serian says with a friendly smile, hoping to convince the captain they are innocent. "Well, you can all have some fun in prison. Round them up," the captain yells. Octavian nods to Serian as he consciously spreads his power over the officers, calming them into complacency. Serian then steps forward, focusing on his words. "All of you will stay calm." A bit redundant, Octavian thought. "Each of you have been deceived. We are not dangerous and aren't criminals, which means you have no problem with allowing us to walk away without charges," Serian says, looking at all the officers. After a second, Serian motions for Midnight, Grillion, and Octavian to move. They each begin to slowly walk away. However, as Serian turns away from the officers and Octavian lowers his focus, a few of the officers are exposed to the effects of Mr. Midnight. The few guards affected are overcome with an all-consuming fear, snapping out of the words Serian had tried to place in their minds. Before they could solidify into their commands, they soon began to fire at the group, motivating them to run and causing the rest of the officers to open fire as well. Damn, critical fail. As bullets fly by, Serian sees that they aren't going to be able to escape. So making a snap decision, he turns to the firing squad, focusing on his one word, shouting, "Stop!" Immediately, a wave went out over the officers, each of them ceasing to fire their guns. Serian looks over to his friends, each with wide eyes, Midnight holding his thigh on the ground. Turning back to the officers, Serian walks forward as he feels Octavian spread his power to them all. The passion and fear he had just felt. The passion and fear he had just felt fell inside him. He still manages to summon some amount of power as he says, "All of you drop your weapons." Serian watches, making sure each of them do so. "You have come here tonight on false pretenses. We're just an innocent group of friends who you've attacked unwarranted," he continues to say, focusing on his words, commanding each officer to obey. "You will leave us now, guilty in your haste to kill us, blameless of no crime." Grillion watches as it's like Jedi mind tricks, man. Grillion watches as the officers leave their weapons and disperse. What is that? Is that Chrysostonomics? Chrysostonomics. Somehow, since a small child, Serian could somehow use his words to inspire, command, and manipulate people. As he has grown, this mutation has grown more potent and seems to affect people's brain by creating a sense of trust with him. With it, he can successfully influence people around him if he puts a sufficient amount of effort into it, meaning there is no off-the-cuff thing. There is no off-the-cuff thing. He has to activate it. Grillion watches as the officers leave their weapons and disperse. The captain follows along without disruption. Serian turns to see Octavian already tending to Midnight's wound. "Will he be okay?" Grillion asks. "I will be absolutely fine," Midnight says. As if on cue, Octavian removes the bullet and the skin heals. What? How did he do that? Grillion wonders. He's wondering what I'm wondering. Octavian still sits hunched over, bowing his head. "I couldn't stop Midnight from getting hurt." Hold up, rewind. What happened? Was that Midnight? Octavian can't heal people, can he? Octavian. Was that Midnight's powers? No, his power is to suppress mutations. But he does have a career in the medical field. But what that just sounded like was magic. Maybe we'll find out. I will be absolutely fine, Midnight says. As if on cue, Octavian removes the bullet and the skin heals. How did he do that? Yeah, that was Midnight. That's why he said I'm going to be fine. Octavian still sits hunched over, bowing his head. Couldn't stop Midnight from getting hurt. Yes, he was going to be fine, but Octavian still felt horrible for being unable to help, unable to keep harm from coming. Man, don't be so hard on yourself. Anyways, Grillion continues. Mr. Midnight, wouldn't you like to be helped? After all, spreading fear and looking like a skeleton isn't very great. Damn, shots fired. I am unable to have such a treatment, child. My life is what I have been given, and I will willfully embrace who I am, Midnight says, turning to walk away. But wouldn't you want to be better? Grillion calls to him. I place my import in what I can and will do for others, not on hindrances of my physical form and what I cannot control. However, I sincerely thank you, but I must now go. Grillion grimaces. So much scientific potential lost in just a few steps. Serian walks up to Grillion, placing his hand on his back. We did our best. At least we know he isn't out there purposely causing fear. Grillion nods. But what about the people in Red Saint? We can look into it. We always find a way, Serian says. I failed, Octavian says while standing. He was shot. I wasn't able to stop it. Don't worry. He's all right. No harm done, Serian says, bending down. Can't you see? It's not that he's better now. It's that he was hurt in the first place. God damn it, Octavian. Octavian says, does Octavian save everybody from getting one bullet wound? If so, man, that's impressive. I should have been smarter and kept those officers calm for longer. I should have been able to protect him. It's okay, Octavian. You can't always protect everyone. Right. But I should, he says. I should go. I'll see you later. Octavian walks away without a wave, his head bowed. Hold up, let's stop here. So that really puts things in perspective. Octavian really cares about people. He was so laid back and like cool, and I didn't think he was so serious about something like that, but that's good to know. And that makes perfect sense why he is working with Havenguard and Jacob, because Jacob's like that too. Jacob would do anything for the people, and he takes his job seriously. So that's one thing Octavian and Jacob seem to have in common. I should be getting back too soon. I should be getting back too, Serian. Grillion says, I have to write this down, see if there's anything I can learn from him. Oh shit, Grillion has like potential villain vibes. Think about everybody who wanted to learn something from somebody. Rezanok. Remember how, if anybody remembers from season 1 and 2, or maybe was it just season 2? No, season 1 and 2, Rezanok. He was pretty creepy with his wanting to know about people's mutations and how they worked. He was like Sylar from Heroes. There's a solo episode with Rezanok where we see him kind of lose that control that Rezanok lost at the end of season 2. Is what he was struggling with for a long time when he first was introduced. And he used to fiend for people's knowledge and abilities and how they worked. He always wanted to see them, which is why he started working at Gate Center to begin with. But also, Deftitude has the same ability Grillion has, and that's the ability to see how and learn abilities and learn how they work to make the person better. I really think Grillion is like, I don't know, he on some Kingdom Hearts shit. He's like on some Ansem shit, like another Deftitude or something. Maybe Deftitude put his cells inside of Grillion or something, I don't know. I'm getting weird vibes from Grillion, but he seems like a good guy so far. But this story so far, I know I couldn't wait. I mean, this is almost over, but I just wanted to say this was really good. Not that I encourage people to write so much, but we got to do this more often because this was good. I could read these all day, man. Like if they were shorter, but man, by Serian getting these other two characters and bringing them in on this, Like the idea is for the player to invite others on and co-write. So if y'all all came up with this together, that's really cool. And it really shines some light on your characters for sure. And this is kind of what I want to see with the ongoing events in the Discord and things that you're doing as individuals, as your role punk type in your lifestyle, your day in the life. Anyway, sorry, I went off on a tangent. Let's wrap this up. So they're all leaving. You know, Octavian is really taking this hard, and now they're all going their separate ways. You know, job well done, mission complete. And Grillion says, I have to write this down, see if there's anything I can learn from them. We never did hear if it really is a mutation. I know, but I must try for future reference, Grillion says, nodding. He leaves Serian on the street alone, walking the opposite direction of Octavian. Doc, Serian's armband says, I'm still tracking him. Smiling, Serian had forgotten. Oh, you can stop. No need to use your energy. He's out of our control, doing what's right. Whatever you say, the AI says back. Adam sounds a little snarky. Serian shakes his head. What an interesting evening. He looks up to the silver outline around the moon, strangely skeletal in shape. The bones of the moon ever so slightly smiling upon those who slept in the shadows. Living each day, hoping against hope that they don't fail. Finally able to celebrate something good with their lives, but that never happens. Serian never succeeded where it mattered. Each step he took brought him closer to the brink of collapse, a place he had escaped years ago. He still finds a strange comfort in the haunted smile of the moon, an encouraging phrase. Oh man, that was great. Yeah. Yes, that was good. Man, he even closed it up with a little final thought from his own character. We got so much insight into Mr. Midnight. Mr. Midnight is so dope, man. Like, I can't help but think of this character that I created when I used to play, when I was a kid playing the wrestling games. I used to have this character that was all black. He had skeletal features. It was in WWF something. And he had a freaking top hat. And it was in a game where you could have them like pose and stand different ways. And I used to always have him like hunched over. But anyway, he was like just a black silhouette. Man, Mr. Midnight. I just got to get that Victorian accent down and we'd be all good. Definitely want to see more of Mr. Midnight. We got to have like recurring events and shit, you know? So let's think of a reward. I think having Mr. Midnight as a close, like a ally that you could get something from in the future, whether it be their help or a lead on a plot lead or something like that. Let's see. I think Serian should, because his AI is still tracking him, he should be able to get in contact with Mr. Midnight at a later date. Or call on him, or have Mr. Midnight like save him in the future or something. Yeah, let's go with that. So for Serian is gonna get Mr. Midnight's help. If whenever you're in a city, a haven city, and the event is happening at nighttime, and you are in need of Mr. Midnight's help for any reason, just include that in your submission to kind of give you an extra layer of oomph in your success chance of achieving your goals. It's essentially like having a keyword, pretty much, Mr. Midnight. And this is gonna be usable X amount of times. When I come up with the final details for it, it'll all be in there. But yeah, Mr. Serian, Serian, Professor Serian gets Mr. Midnight. We'll call it Mr. Midnight Summon. Grillion point. Grillion. What you're gonna get are research notes on his ability. Research notes on his. Why am I typing that? Research notes. And this can be something minor that you can either teach yourself or teach someone something. Just let me know when you want to apply it, and I will apply it. So if you ever are saying you want to teach somebody something or teach yourself something or make use of these research notes, just say when you want to use that and how you want to apply it. So if there's somebody you want to teach something, let's say you're teaching somebody something and you say, hey, you know what? I want to use what I learned from my research on Mr. Midnight. Say that you'll use the Midnight research, and I'll find a way to incorporate something that you learned from Mr. Midnight's abilities in this short span of time. That's why I say it's going to be minor. I'll find a way to incorporate that into the outcome of what you want. But it'll be a mystery on the outcome, which would be the cool part. So I would try to apply some of that, because I do feel like you could, you being the type of character you are, you would have gotten something from this experience as far as research, and like you said, and you're going to go home and meditate on what you learned. So research on Mr. Midnight, and the details will be finalized in that as well. Y'all should put these things in your inventory. Let's treat this like items. On your character profile, you can add things to your inventory. That way you can kind of keep track, unless you're keeping track somewhere else, which I recommend everybody do. And then Octavian. I like how Octavian was pretty much really beating himself up, right? So for Octavian, I think this would make him want to fight harder and when it comes to protecting people. So I'll say this: if your objective involves protecting people, you will other people, not yourself. You will have a bonus to your success, your odds of success. And this is going to be usable once. This is a time to really, I would save it for a time when you know it's like shit's about to go down. So whenever it's time for me to roll you against the opposition, you'll have a bonus if it involves protecting people, like directly protecting people, something that's going to ultimately hurt people. And you're protecting them, you'll have a bonus to your success odds. I'm just drawing this because of how important this is to your character. So we'll call this protect harder. Protect harder. And more details will be in that. But all right, if there's any changes, I'll let you know. But I think we're going to land on that, something like that for the abilities. That was a great story. This was a great event, and I'll definitely like to see things like this get attached to the lore pieces. I still have to, and I didn't forget, but I still had to attach Jeremiah's story, Jeremiah in the mall and the Tartarus ring, the first story, to the Tartarus ring lore. And this is going to be attached to the Mr. Midnight lore. That was really good. And it's always nice to hear from other people's perspectives and what's going on from their character, but even the writing as the player. So I definitely want to hand out more district passes, but you can also achieve something like this very similar with your profile. So if you're achieving goals, if you're role playing like this and making great stories like this and developing your characters like this, and you're using what we're doing in Discord and Rolepunk by achieving those goals and having a shot at daily goals, and the harder they are odds wise, the more awesome it is when you do achieve it, and you want to express that through your writing, and that'll really be opportunity to build out your character. Share it on your profile in Anvil, and then I'm gonna go and browse through them, and I'm gonna share these as well, and we're gonna pick out, we're gonna go over your actions, your achievements, and we're also gonna pull some lore out of that. So there's multiple ways to shine some light on your character in Rolepunk, and what gets picked is certainly going to be canonized. So, but try to be realistic. It'll be canonized if it doesn't conflict too much with what's going on. These are more like side quests, you know what I mean? The world is so big and expansive, we can be world building in between episodes pretty much. So, hey, Serian, Grillion, Octavian, not only are those some really great characters, we got a chance to see how your abilities act in the field. Definitely looking to see what y'all do in upcoming episodes. And thanks for everybody for listening. If you like stuff like this, like, subscribe if you're into it, and more incoming. Peace.